Alrighty, good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome to all of our guests this morning or this evening, wherever you're tuning in from. I can see a lot of our regulars from Australia, and we've got a lot of additional guests today from the US and the UK, which is fantastic to see. So welcome if this is your first Kepler Analytics webinar. And thank you for joining us. We're really appreciative of you sharing some of your valuable time with us. Today, we're going to share with you some insight and Kepler's view on navigating the retail headwinds. My name is Kylie Smart, and I'm the head of customer success at Kepler. And before I introduce you to our speakers, I'm going to share a few webinar tips. Okay, so the settings, you'll see those if you're looking for sound. It's located at the top right-hand corner of your screen. And if you have any issues with video quality, just refresh your browser. You'll also notice to the right, you have a chat box. So we always love hearing from everyone that's in the audience. So please say hello if you're there. So tell us where you're tuning in from. And also, if you have any questions throughout today's session, we always love to hear from you. So please put those in there. We are going to try and wait till questions for the end, because we've got a lot of juicy content to take you through. And we'll also share with you a copy of the presentation today at the end of the webinar. You'll also notice throughout as well, we do have a poll, so they are anonymous, so please feel free to answer them along the way if you wanted to. Okay, so a little bit about who Kepler Analytics is. So we are a unique people counting technology, and we help high-performing retailers better understand their customers' path to purchase in your bricks and mortar stores. And we help give you fantastic insights and measures and give you that full visibility inside your retail stores that you cannot see at the moment. And those who work with Kepler will always see an increase in sales, improve customer satisfaction, and we see an improvement in sales performance and decrease in operating costs across 87% of their store network. So some introductions. I'm delighted to welcome our CEO, Tom Gleeson. And no, it's not the Australian comedian. Tom has an outstanding background working with some of the industry's finest, such as GE, the Novo Group, and McKinsey. And a fun fact about Tom is he used to be a fighter pilot and instructor, so which is pretty cool. Now, please welcome Captain Gleeson to the stage.
All right, g'day everybody, and thanks for that introduction. Kylie. Look, I'm not going to take much of your time. I'm not going to stand in the way of the amazing turn to Fazio and the insights that his team have pulled together. I just want to say a few build on something Kylie said there about Kepler. We spend a lot of time talking about unlocking the high performance potential of retail. That's our purpose. That's why we get out of bed in the morning, and it's why Kepler as a company exists. And it's why Tony and his team have spent days and nights looking for nuggets and insights to help you on your journey to becoming an even higher performance retailer than you maybe already are. And particularly in today's current uncertain macroeconomic environment, decreasing footfalls and declining discretionary spend, it's even more important that you get the most out of every customer that is passing by outside or entering your store. We firmly believe at Kepler that you can't be a high performance retailer without making data-driven decisions. So that's something you'll see a thread running through tonight's webinar from Tony and the team around using data-driven insights to improve the performance of your stores, your teams, and your overall network. So without further ado, I'll hand over to the amazing Tony Fazio, who's our head of product, to take you through the rest of the webinar. And I hope you all get something out of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, everyone, for your time this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. So I'm just going to bring up my screen now. There's a lot to get through. So as I'm sure everyone's aware, 2023 hasn't been an easy year. For those of us that have been in retail for a very long time, we've all been saying it gets more and more challenging. I think probably 23 has been the most challenging year that I've been a part of. So look, let's get stuck in without further ado, and let's get in. But we might hold questions. Please put them into the chat, but I might hold my responses till the end which is a departure from my typical style. So what we're going to go through today is basically how 2023 has played out so far. You'll see very shortly that June is a bit of a tipping point month. So June marked a real departure from what was a bit of a sketchy start to the year to being an indicator as to what's coming. And we're going to apply that data into how best to step forward into half two and beyond. And we're really looking forward into those metrics for winning Q4, winning that Christmas quarter, but also what can we learn for next year. Now, this is based on KRI. KRI, our Kepler Retail Index, is 1,800 plus stores across Australia and New Zealand, aggregated trends, a number of different breakdowns, categories, and retail profiles, and so on. Now, this is real data aggregated from real results. It's all the stuff that affects retailers on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis, and it's about as live as it gets. I've said it before and I'll say it again. In my opinion, it's the most powerful retail tool available to anyone who follows retail. So I cannot speak the value of this product enough. It just constantly reveals nuggets. So let's get into the key learnings year to date. So we all know that economic headwinds have had significant impacts. There are significant risks to ongoing profitability. Outside traffic declines have cost retailers 7.1% of their sales in the last quarter, or quarter two of this year alone. The forecast for H2 is further declines around -5%, a little bit more than -5%. So we started the year a little bit more bullish than that. Everyone did. Everyone's pulling their forecast back. Even the NRF in the US has pulled their forecast back. But it's important to realise that the declines aren't uniform, with larger states, particularly Victoria, leading the way down. And this opens up prospects to manage those declines, to mitigate our overall sales impacts as we progress. Fruitful discussions with our landlords around their part in sales results is a key to ensuring profitability, as we're impacted by factors beyond the retailer's control. If we don't have the outside traffic, it's very hard to draw people in. And as I've said, that's 7.1%. But first and foremost, we need to look at what we can control and what are the measurable factors around our traffic utilization that retailers have within our grasp. We've noticed, and we've spooked it often in recent months, declining productivity and declining returns from the inside traffic base. Even if it is declining, they're increasingly retail intentional. So we're seeing this decline in these rates, which is something that we think retailers can work towards. The largest part of the decline mitigation strategy, we think, pretty confident, is definitely within the retailer's control, as long as they know the when and the where to act. And that's the stuff that we're going to go through. You'll hear me repeat those words, the when and the where, quite a lot through today's presentations. So let's have a look at the state of retail so far in 2023. I'm not going to dwell too much on the economic circumstances, right, everyone? You want to read about the bad news in inflation and household savings and all these wonderful things. Open up any media outlet, you'll hear lots on it. The impact for us is that our profits are being increasingly squeezed. And so this is what we need to work on, right? So if we're within this space, it's the profit that we need to protect. The forecast for consumption from NAB, some very powerful minds, is that we're going to get some negative growth through until the mid-2024, with a return to modest growth of around about 2026. Savings rates leave very little in the tank for our consumers. So the trajectory for the first half of 23 has been down and increasingly down. You can see that in that bottom graph down here. I hope you can see my mouse, but you can see that trajectory is not great. Recently, retailers have reacted, and we've seen a lowering of sites and a lowering of sales targets to meet these lower results. This is not a great prospect, especially if it leads to that circularity in the drivers of sales and the results that we therefore see. And this is one of the themes, again, that you'll hear us talk about, is that productivity impact and what's in our control. Certainly circularity is something that is concerning. And we've been calling out for some time that the declines are not uniform by state, nor are they uniform by precinct type. The when and the where of traffic has been dramatically altered and continues to shift. Outlets and CBDs have been the most resilient by far, and you can see we call these out quite a lot. So the outlets and the CBD locations on the screen right now. Now, return to office is having less of an effect on CBD locations than earlier in 2023 for our US clients or our European. Someone pointed out to me the other day that CBD means some kind of cannabis-derived product in North America. We're not talking about that. We're talking about central business district locations. So we're seeing less of a return to work impact than we have done in previous years. But most notably, what we're seeing is that international arrivals on the bottom right are coming back into the country, and we expect that to normalise by the end of this year. And as that's happening, again, CBD and outlets, these guys are going to underpin, or these locations are going to underpin the strength, or if there are any sectors of strength in passerby traffic, that's where it's going to happen. Metro and super metro centres, those suburban centres, and our A grades, the key linchpin centres and regional centres, aren't seeing that traffic maintain as it was in prior years. So I want to call out again that getting the retail execution correct by location type and executing to the evolved when and where of traffic of an increasingly retail intention traffic is the key to mitigation and decline. And it sets the stage for possible profitability increases as we move forward through the rest of 2023. So given the increasing speed of change this year, Q2 offers the most powerful insights. You saw that declining graph. So we were looking at Q2 for our most powerful and most recent indicators, because there was that tipping point month in June. There was that real shift, but we didn't want to focus on entirely the negative stuff. So all other factors being equal, this chart that takes center stage on this slide right now shows you the contribution of the key metrics to sales results. So overall Q2 sales year on year down 3.9%, not a great scenario. All of that has come from outside traffic declines. So outside traffic declines have meant that retailers have copped a 7.1% sales decline just from our passerby traffic. The traffic is far more intentional, so we're able to bring more traffic into our stores and claw some of that decline back. Better sales conversion, but we've copped a bit with ATV, which leaves us that 3.9 down. This is an enduring decline in passerby traffic, so we're not seeing this pick up, although we're seeing international arrivals come back. That's going to be localised into a couple of precincts in the CBD and the outlets, as we've discussed. But the passerby traffic is now the single biggest headwind for retailers. The elements that the retailer can control have clawed back that decline, as we have discussed. And this is where we need to focus our efforts into the controllables. So more than ever, the success of the retail store is wholly dependent on the retailer over everything else. Ongoing success depends on how we manage and continue to draw traffic in, and then lock in the sales of appropriate value, of trying to protect that ATV. Every entry into store is an opportunity, and never more so than now. The browser is gone, the browser is dead. Every entry into store is a gift. I'm going to make a call here. Retail success is now independent of landlords. Rent as a percentage of sales is now, as in my opinion, has always been an archaic metric. I've never understood it, but rent as a percentage of sales is irrelevant. Retailers purchase quality and volume of traffic. If the volume has collapsed, and it has collapsed, and the quality is now defined by the retailer, the old valuations of tenancies, simply put, is out of date and inapplicable. Our half-two forecast points to an overall decline of 5.2% in sales if our trends continue. We're seeing an outside traffic decline of about 8% over the second half. Retailers realistically must claw back most of this H2 sales decline before we get further inventory impacts and before we get further profitability impacts that are actually locked in for longer than just the H2 cycle. The displayed shift, so we're talking about a move in our shopfront conversion of 1%. We're forecasting, generally speaking, a 3% rate in our shopfront conversion. So for those of us that ask us what typical rates are, not all retailers, not all retail precincts are the same, but 3% is about the average across our retail base. Remember, we're talking about 1,800 plus stores across Australia and New Zealand. We need that to move to 4%. Now that's typically been a hard metric, but as the outside traffic declines, the traffic that remains is incented to spend money. So moving that becomes an easier task than it has done before. Moving our sales conversion 2%, moving our ATV 2% is going to get that sales decline from a minus 5.2 in the forecast to a minus 0.4. So these are the levers that a retailer has at their disposal. Robust discussions with our landlords are then going to open up that pathway to profitability and at least maintenance of profitability, where retailers who are working harder than ever before just to keep their heads at the waterline or keep themselves neutral on prior year have a chance of increasing their profitability. I'm going to reiterate that point. Retail success is now independent of landlords. We've broken those same sales drivers down for key categories. So we've looked at across the board. I'm going to go through a couple, but apparel, health and beauty and wellness, general merchant, electronics, housewares. For those who have KRI, you know that the Kepler Retail Index breaks these categories down on a week-to-week, month-to-month basis and so on and so forth. For those of you that haven't seen it, again, it is the most powerful retail tool that exists for anyone who is interested in retail. So those sales drivers here, we've broken them down and we've suggested some strategies. I'm going to go through a couple because they're not uniform across the board. The results are not uniform. Not everyone is suffering a sales decline. So health, beauty and wellness is actually having a pretty good result, and that's a pretty well documented effect. Recessions usually have a good impact on health, beauty and well-being categories, but some categories are having more impactful results than others. We have a look at apparel retailers. Apparel retailers face significant declines in passerby traffic. Now remember, our definition of passerby traffic is very different to what a centre defines as a centre entry. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later. But if they don't walk past your store, if they're 100 metres away from your store, they're not passerby traffic. They're not someone you should be paying rent for. So with apparel having the biggest decline in passerby traffic, we should then be prioritising our landlord discussions, and we really need to be looking at that optimization of the when and the where we have our resources able to capitalize on the traffic that remains. Watch and jewelry, similarly, they've copped a little bit of an impact from outside traffic, but the biggest impact for them has been from sales conversion. And so what are the elements that drive sales conversion? Labor optimization, stock and merchandising strategies, increasingly flexible purchase options, not aiming to tell our jewelry, watch and jewelry clients how to do their business. But again, just some key suggestions, given that the opportunity is coming from the sales conversion decline rather than other elements. Please review these for your own category. And if Kepler can assist, please reach out after this webinar for some more in-depth reviews. So I was thinking about this one over the last, I don't know, it feels like I've been reviewing this slide in particular for about 3 months now. It's probably only been a couple of weeks. The thought that kept coming over my mind is an agile retailer adapts their offer and their model according to the market. A high-performance retailer captures or capitalizes on the wide-ranging knowledge from others to drive their own success further. And so looking at adjacencies and tendencies and looking at what other retailers are doing that is working is now more important than ever before. We've broken it down as well by precinct type. So metro centres, typically your suburbans, super metro centres, your A grades, Chadstones, Bondis, Chermsides, etc. Regional centres, those outside the boundaries of metropolitan areas, outlets, I think we all know outlets, and then central business district locations for our US clients. And I want to call a difference between the super centres and the metro centres and outlet centres. So supercenter and metro center, the traffic declines across these two on the top line are simply staggering, extraordinarily large. And the ability to claw back those losses is going to be a significant challenge. They operate in distinct contrast to the outlet centres where stable precinct traffic actually resists entering stores. And so the strategies here are very, very different. Outlets need to focus on that call to action and storefront engagement models to boost sales. Measuring that storefront engagement in outlet centres It's got to be the most critical thing for anyone who's got any significant exposure to these. If we think that this is going to turn on a dime, if we think that the market prospects are going to turn on a dime, go back to that NAB sentiment where the reality is it's probably going to run until 26. So we need to be able to put the structures in place where we can measure storefront engagements here. We need to be able to make sure that we are managing that passerby traffic and the in-store executions across these different precinct types. Overall, there are significant impacts across all precinct types that need to be addressed in terms of stock allocation, staffing, training, merchandising to drive the result changes we highlighted earlier, that move in shopfront conversion, that move in ATV, and that move in sales conversion, and everything underpinned by that traffic level analysis. It's very, very hard to have a great ATV if no one is coming into stores. You can have all the intention, all the training in the world designed to equip it, but if there's no customers in the store, it's a hard ask. They're the primary ingredient of making any sale. All of those changes are within our control. Now, again, I'm going to reiterate, it's a very safe assumption to say that outside traffic will continue to decline for the balance of 2023. We've got it at -8. I don't like assumptions. Those that know me have often heard me say I don't like assumptions. But I think that's a very, very safe assumption to make. Understanding just how much, when, and where that traffic changes can be the difference in how that 7% decline in our sales is managed best. Again, Kepler's there to help out if you need, and if you need more detail on this, please do let us know. That stock allocation replenishment model, that's the one thing that sort of keeps me awake at night as I look over the retail landscape for the back end of 23 and into 24. Anyway, in summary, there are 3 key action areas to focus on. There are some key tactics and strategies that need to be put in place now to ensure that any outcomes that we learn or any outcomes that we test can be validated over Father's Day with a view to getting all the important Q4 stages correct. We've broken them down into shopfront conversion, sales conversion, and average transaction version options. Underpinning all this is productive landlord discussions, internal transactive capacity reviews. Now, when I talk about transactive capacity reviews, we need to talk about maximizing average visitor value. ATV is a great metric, a very powerful metric. I'm never, ever going to underplay that one. But average transaction value measures the value of those that have transacted. What about those that didn't? One of my colleagues put it very, very succinctly yesterday when he said, have you counted the people that didn't purchase today rather than the people that did? I thought that was a very, very powerful statement. What is the value of the people that didn't purchase? What is the value of everyone that walks into your store? We need to do this. So that transactive capacity piece is around how does the store combine to bring the unity of the store to encourage people to purchase everything from ambience, lighting, music, all the way through to ticketing, pricing, labeling, stock availability on store, theming, color merchandising, journeys, path to purchase, queuing, impulse lines. We haven't even talked about stuff yet. These are all the things that we need to bring to bear with transactional capacity or transactive capacity. I can get very passionate about that. If you want to have a chat about transactive capacity, put 2 hours in my diary and we'll chat about it. I'll let you speak for about 30 seconds out of that 2 hours. Anyway, sales maximization support for the shop floor. These need to be key focuses of the areas that we can control. That's the stuff we need to focus on. It's got to be done at a granular precinct by precinct basis. Retail may be tougher than ever before, but a savvy retailer can have more data than ever before to guide their processes and thoughts, measure what matters. That's the important thing. The productivity and efficiency losses we've been speaking to weekly. So for those of us that follow us on LinkedIn, we do some videos and we do some updates. And we're seeing these productivity and efficiency losses. These are the most controllable tools that a retailer has. What is the return for dwell time in store? What is the return on average visitor value in store? The response to the challenges need not be an extra resource or extra cost. We're very conscious at Kepler to make sure that the models that we speak to and the improvements that we speak to stay within the retailer's model. It's not about extra cost. It's not about extra roster. It's about aiding the customer path to purchase, getting them to purchase deeper and wider baskets. Effort must align to the when and the where traffic exists, and then how do I get them to engage better in our stores. Retail excellence is not just centered on staff. So let's have a look into these learnings for Father's Day and beyond. In short, Father's Day 2022 was decimated by heavy declines in ATV. So the month of August, and again, my team and I were looking at ATV in 2022, and I realised why I got one pair of socks instead of two as my Father's Day gift, because the ATV just wasn't there. Now we're seeing ATV declines in 23 again, year on year, but nowhere near what we saw. I think it was about 6.5% last year. This year so far, we're running at about 1.5%. We're nowhere near those levels of decline. So if all else remains constant, and we think that Father's Day proved the drawing traffic above the typical preceding weeks, then stores that can protect their ATV can expect a significant boost in sales year on year. The question becomes whether stores can cope with such a boost, with the resourcing and transactive capacity that we've spoken about, with stores under stress, as we've seen in the other metrics, as we've seen in those productivity metrics that we've discussed in other forums as well. And if you need any support with those, again, let us know. I think the important thing to look at here is that shift as well. 2019, Father's Day was the biggest event. So if you look across the graph on the green line, you can see that Father's Day well outstripped Mother's Day. By 2022, the blue line, Mother's Day, has really turned the tables on Father's Day. This year, I think there's probably going to be more of a normalization of the Father's Day result. Protecting ATV may just give us that brief respite from sales decline on a year-on-year basis. I'm going to leave that there. That would be a nice thing to have, a small period of respite. So if there is a 10% lift in Father's Day week, can our stores cope? Have we aligned that transactive capacity to support our stores in that context? All right, this is a really, really important one. This one focuses just on metro centres. So we've got an inside traffic variance and we've got a sales conversion variance. I'm going to spend a bit of time on this slide. I was going to spend an extra couple of minutes on it. As discussed earlier, and we've noted this before, declines are not uniform by precinct, nor are they uniform by time of day or day of week, the when and the where of traffic has changed. As can be seen here, as we go from April to May to June, June is the real tipping point into strongly negative results. The volumes of traffic have most affected Thursday to Sunday. Traditionally, these are our key retail days across Australia and New Zealand. Sales conversion rates is maintained on Saturdays and Sundays, with declines on Thursdays and Fridays. So the question becomes then, and we pondered this for some time over the last couple of days, is are there operational differences? Is there different rosters? Or is it that we're more likely there are less non-sales related tasking across Saturday and Sunday than there are across Thursday and Friday, which is leading to that change in sales conversion result? I don't hold to the fact, because it's proportional. Everything that you see across these slides is proportional. I don't hold to the fact that perhaps a customer that comes in between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. is more likely to purchase than a customer at 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. simply on the basis of time. I don't think that our customers sit there and go, no, I won't purchase at 10:45 a.m. I'm going to wait until it's afternoon just because I want to affect the stats. I don't think similarly that customers say I'm more likely to purchase on a Saturday across all of our categories than they are on a Thursday and Friday. And the reason I say that, the reason I'm really, really comfortable in saying that, is because we've seen that passerby traffic decline so very, very much. The passerby traffic is declining because people aren't visiting centres as much, as often, or as frequently. Any visit into the centre, any visit into the store has a purpose, regardless of the when and the where. And so these operational differences, what is the difference between the the conversion rate on a Saturday and Sunday versus the conversion rate changes on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, they need to be explored. They need to be delved into quite deeply. There are a number of key trends to examine. That morning period sales conversion rate that I've spoken about, the overall shift in June versus the prior months. Are we now in a cycle where we have facilitated to some degree that decline in conversion rate because we have negatively affected our own transactive capacity? Is it now at the stage where we have tightened processes or tightened stock allocations or tightened rosters or tightened other elements such that transactive capacity is now more difficult? Customers can find less clearly labeled, clearly ticketed, clearly priced, the right color, the right size, the right whatevers of what they want to purchase at the right point in time. Again, it's not about more roster, it's about aligning that roster to the when and the where people need it. Each of these questions, each of these opportunities that we've discussed represent an opportunity to rebalance approaches and tactics. It's not about more, it's about the approach that we have to those tactics and those tools that we deploy. Focusing on and implementing those changes in the key locations and key location profiles at a period like Father's Day may help unveil the opportunities for Q4. It's not about trying, if you can try everything, if you've got the resources to try everything everywhere all at once, happy days. Be a great name for a movie title, that one. But if you don't have that, certainly trying some things across CBDs and outlet locations, if they fit your profile, that would certainly be the most valuable experiment you could do this Father's Day to work out what's going to work for the all-important Q4. Again, in summary, the when and the where of traffic has changed, and it continues to change. Being equipped to understand this shift is more vital than ever before. So I'm going to do a quick wrap before we head into the Q&A session. There's probably some chats that I haven't seen as yet, for which I apologise. But precinct traffic is the key challenge for retailers. The persistent declines remain and will remain, that -8% that we've spoken about before. With such vastly reduced traffic, the opportunity for growth is limited. This creates a need for productive dialogue with landlords, where rent per passerby becomes the value equation for leases. You don't buy sales. You don't buy, well, you do buy space, but space is unimportant if you don't have traffic. Space without traffic is kind of irrelevant. What you're buying is passerby. What you're buying is a volume and an applicability of that traffic to your stores. So rent per passerby must become the value equation for leases. I'll let one of my little bugbears come in again. There's a flurry of development activity where landlords are opening up beautiful food and entertainment precincts outside the main retail precinct. But don't get me wrong, fantastic, great to have investment in those retail precincts. But again, is that bringing traffic into and past your stores, or is it bringing traffic to the outside of the centre and specific areas just inside the retail precinct to then depart? If that increased traffic flow doesn't wander through your centres, doesn't wander past your store, is it important to you? This then becomes the nature of that productive discussion. This then becomes the nature of that rent per passerby. If they don't pass your store, should you be paying for them? Retailers aren't off the hook. We've discussed this before. Traditional actions of inspiring traffic to enter a store, then engage deeper and in deeper and more transactional ways remain critical. It's only by changing these controllable metrics that 5%, that 5.2% that it looks like being down for the balance of half two, that we can mitigate that, and we've quantified that coming down to a -0.4. We can manage those declines and then allowing for those rent discussions and robust metric-guided negotiations. If they're not provable, good luck, but allowing for those robust metric-guided negotiations can create that profitability parity to prior year results for the aware retailer, equipped with those metrics they need and the tools they need to justify and support their negotiation strategy. In a future where precincts cannot be relied on for traffic, I'm going to let that hang for a sec. In a future where precincts cannot be relied on for traffic, knowing the controllable elements and ensuring that our customers are engaged, activated efficiently and deeply remain the levers that a retailer has to protect themselves through half two and beyond. Thank you for your attendance. If Kepler can assist, please do reach out. Lots of contact details across the screen, and you've got our emails. Now let's move on to the Q&A. Thanks, Kylie.
Excellent. Thank you, Tony de Fazio. That was really, really insightful. And one of the things that I took away from that was one of the things that was very interesting for me was I remember about a quarter ago, last quarter, we were talking about the shift in traffic returning to the start of the week in that morning period in those first few hours of the day and coming back towards Monday to Wednesday. Really interesting to see that just looking at that month-on-month comparison that the traffic again is shifting year on based on last year. So there's no consistent pattern and there's no real way to sort of predict what's going to happen because it keeps shifting. So that was really, really insightful, Tony. And for me, I didn't realize how much it was shifting even again in June. So it will be very interesting to see how August, what happens in August. So one of the things that I think most of our customers are doing at the moment is really utilizing that hourly dashboard that we have that shows you the breakdown of traffic. So I think one of the key takeaways for retailers at the moment is certainly we know that you don't have any extra hours to spend. And so it's not about, well, how do I cut costs, but actually where should I be investing those hours over the day? And it's not just overall for the group. From what I took from what you were talking about, Tony, was that you actually need to look at every single store individually. So Tony, where have you seen overall the biggest shift? If you're comparing CBDs, metros, supercenters, have you noticed a particular shift anywhere in any types of centers?
Yeah, look, the biggest centres to grow are the outlets. They have done well. They have maintained their traffic, right? They're actually on a little bit of a positive spin right now. They've been up and down periodically, but overall they're on a slightly positive trend on last year. They were hit hardest through COVID, but they've recovered best. And CBDs, as the tourists come in, is fantastic. The bigger the centre, the biggest centres have been hit really hard and are struggling to recover that. And then you sort of got to overlay those state results. So Victoria's always been a bit of a bellwether state, at least for me. In my thinking, I've always treated Victoria as the bellwether state. Whatever happens in Vic usually flows to the rest of the country a few months later. Victoria's in a bit of bother, and outside traffic has been hit, passer-by traffic has been hit hardest in Victoria. New South Wales is a little bit behind. Queensland has been really quite strong comparatively. So for those retailers that have a Queensland presence, that would be another really good test bed if you want to start to analyse your transactive capacity, because the traffic has been more resistant to decline. I think it's down 3 versus down 11 in Vic over the last couple of weeks. But we're seeing sales conversion in Queensland be really, really soft. So analysing that transactive capacity, pulling up those things, and then I'd start to overlay those metrics. So I'd be putting Brisbane DFO, if you've got a store in Brisbane DFO, I'd be putting that one under the spotlight as a real test bed for opportunity for growth. What is it that would work in those locations? What is it that would work in CBD locations? If you've got Queen Street or you've got Myer Centre, although they're going to have to rename that one soon. If you've got those CBD precincts in Brisbane, what is it that you are doing in those locations? And then what else could you do across Queensland as opposed to how you can rationalise your efforts in Victoria?
Yeah, great. Thanks for that, Tony. So I think for most retailers at the moment, I'm going to jump to this question in a second in the chat, but we're seeing two things at the moment. So one, some of the larger organizations are starting to now use the traffic in their rostering. So they're integrating the traffic measures into the rosters. So that's something that we're seeing some of the high performing retailers really starting to do at the moment. But then if you're a smaller business, you can still take that hourly traffic data and use that for your rostering. So if anyone's unsure on how to do it or what does best in class look like, we can help you do it. So, reach out to who your client success director is, and we can support you on how do you model those rosters to align with the traffic. There is a question here, Tony, in the chat there, so I'll let you answer that one.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. I did see that one. And it's a great question, right? And it boils down to the heart of what is traffic. So, and I know it's a great question, right? When is traffic? So passerby traffic is people who walk past your doors. That is your available pool. That's your potential for your store. And really, really important to get that quantified, get that measured. So outside traffic, outside your store for even just a moment. Inside traffic is the people that step inside your store for 30 seconds or more. So this is a retail intention traffic. So it is those people who are actively engaging in the store. Now the rates have changed. Yep. So outside traffic has changed by -7 year to date, or the sales impact has been -7, but outside traffic is down pretty significantly, and depending on the centre, you could be even up to -14 if you're in a super centre on last year. But that outside traffic is just what is the precinct traffic that is actively walking past your store. So think of it as an exploration metric through the centre. Inside traffic is, again, just measured on how many people are inside the store, because across the board, only 3% of who walks past will enter any given store at any given moment. So on average, you've got 3% of the traffic entering stores. And that's that difference. So to your question, Charmy, the outside traffic is far more likely to enter stores. And this is a really, really key point. And we've had this discussion in Kepler for years now. Where is the value? Is the value in drawing the marketing dollar and spending more money outside the centre to bring people to the centre? Or is the value in getting people who are already in the centre to come into your store? And I think the answer to that question has changed probably over the last sort of 6 to 8 months. But there was a real value in the retailer drawing traffic in because they needed to partner with landlords to be that linchpin and be the reason the traffic came in. I think now you need to be capitalising on the traffic that exists. You've got to assume that anyone who is in a centre to spend. You've got to assume that not everyone is equipped. And remember, we're only reporting on Kepler retailers, and we're still seeing those productivity rates decline, which means that non-Kepler clients are declining even faster. We know that. We see our results versus ABS results, and we see that there is a difference when someone has Kepler. So you've got to assume that someone who's in centre to buy something, and if they've walked into one of your competitors, chances are they are walking away with more of a chance of being unfulfilled. So you've got to leech off everyone else's traffic, and I think activating that traffic and getting that traffic into your store, although there's less traffic outside, you've got more chance of getting them into your store because they are far more likely to come in, and once they're in, they're far more likely to buy. So I hope that answers your question, Jamie. Please put a follow-up in if we haven't.
Yeah. So before I jump to the other question there, so the other thing you talked about too, just quickly, was around lease negotiations and making sure that you're choosing the right location. So we know that we talk to landlords, they're not really providing you traffic data. So when you're selecting that golden site that you're going to invest your hard-earned money into, how do you know if that spot is the right location for you? Now, you might have your overarching view on where we should be located, what brands complement us, or what parts of the centre are beneficial. But how do you know that what you're expected to pay is going to bring you the traffic that you need into your store? Now, the questions I've got for the retailers in the room is, are you using your Kepler traffic at the moment for lease negotiations? Because I'm hearing some success stories on those negotiations where they're successfully recuperating and being able to negotiate quite effectively. Is there a quick example that you can give us? And then we're going to jump over to Tom's question.
Yep. So that's the $2 million question, right? Because by the time you have committed to a 6-year lease, if you're going to run on a standard term, and you're talking about a couple $100,000, which is a fairly modest rent in most major centres these days. So you got $1.2 million of exposure there. Then you got to fit the store. Then you got to staff the store, stock the store, do all that kind of stuff. So it's a $2 million question, right? And the only valid answer to that is, have you assessed the outside traffic? Because you can get demographic fit. And we know certain centres, right? We know that Narellan is going to have a very different demographic and a very different profile to Bondi and all that kind of stuff. We get all that. But then within centres, it is very, very different. And we've seen in our modelling that on an average day, the traffic in one part of even a small centre, even an outlet centre, can vary by 71% above average to 65% below average on any given day over a monthly period. So you've got a chance. It's hit or miss across centres. It's not about gut feel. It's not about sitting there for 3 or 4 hours. It's about understanding what that profile is. So if there are any retailers out there and anyone wants to contribute on how they're using it, I'd love the feedback as well. I think that would be a great answer.
Yeah.
But knowing that outside traffic would be really the key ingredient.
So there's two ways we help customers. One is using your traffic that you've already got for your locations for your negotiation, and two is if you're not already utilizing the new site assessment toolkit, if you've got large expansion plans on the cards for this year, which we know some retailers do, there is a tool you can use called a new site assessment or our property toolkit. And it's a must-have for high-performing retailers for those negotiations. So we can chat to you about that at another time and connect with us on that. So there is a question there. So I'll hand that over to you. So we've got 2 more to answer, and then we can wrap up.
Perfect. Bianca, thank you for stroking my ego. That's lovely. Have we noticed any uplift in loyalty programs to help entice conversion and ATV? Unfortunately, Bianca, we can get, if you've got it in your systems and you want to give it to us. It's great to have one source of truth across all of your data streams. Don't get a lot of the loyalty program feedback. So I might throw that one out to the crowd. We do think, we do have a gut feel from our clients that have good loyalty programs that these are providing impetus to get people back. But I think, Bianca, the opportunity is, and again, this is going to sound terrible, but it's a tough situation out there. So I think you've got to do it. You've got to get everyone else's traffic, right? You've got to fish off other people's fishing hooks. So if they're in the center, that's your viable pool, and that's who you've got to draw from. So I'm thinking things like, the spot specials and the 1 day onlys and all that kind of stuff, without going down that, that 1970s car salesman type or car salesperson type sales model, but anything that entices those people in measuring that shop front conversion and measuring that storefront engagement. One of our retailers does a spectacular job of measuring people that pause in front of their store for 30 seconds within 1 meter of their storefront and then transitions in. That's one of their KPIs, and they use one of our sensors to just work out how many people stop there in front of the store and then transition in, how many people engage with their windows and their storefront displays. That's the kind of stuff I'd be looking for, Bianca. I think loyalty programs will always have a part. I think we can do that, and I'd love to see if there's any other feedback on that. But understanding that storefront capture rate, that's gold. That's gold. I hope that answers your question, Bianca. And again, I'll throw that one out there if anyone's got any other comments. And then
just on that too, we have seen quite a lot of our customers now start to integrate that information in the dashboard, and so you can then start to see the relationship between all the measures and telling that story, and it just starts to make more of those those conversations around the impacts of loyalty and aligning that with traffic. What is the impact, and also sales conversion. There was another question in here too, just about the traffic utilization in the larger organizations, and do we think there's more to do on that front and save further cost from that perspective? I mean, I can absolutely answer that one, 100%. And it's also about who you're rostering and where. So what's really cool about being able to start measuring the sales conversion rates on an hourly level is that you can actually start to see the effectiveness of the store team. So when I roster, say, Sally, for example, I can start to see, well, does she need some more training from, a customer experience point of view? Or is there someone that needs, do I need to put stronger team members at different times of the day? And absolutely, from, rostering the right people at the right time, ready to sell or to engage with the customers. So yeah, absolutely, there's a huge opportunity there, because I think gone are the days of rostering to last year's sales performance or looking at last year's results. I think if you're still rostering that way, you are really missing out on those effective rosters. There is, so Becca already commented on that. And I think just finally, is there any final thoughts there? There was a question around what we're expecting to see for August. Is there any sort of final view there, Tony, on the trends? And then we'll finish up.
Yeah, look, I think that point around targets have now declined to meet sales. I find that concerning in some aspects, right? I get it. I've done it. I've been there. It's difficult when times are tough to actually set your expectations, and then you set this period of growth and they don't hit it, and it has a demoralizing effect, right? But I think we've got to look at the underlying drivers of sales. I think you've got to sit there and say, have we controlled the controllables? Have we controlled what's within our grasp? Have we adapted the small things? And I can't stand this phrase. Have we gone back to basics? Have we done the retail fundamentals that a faster, more intentional customer demands? So we've got to manage the cost. We've got to manage those things. If there is a declining traffic base, you can't just keep throwing roster like you used to. I understand that. But have we done everything to bear that transactive capacity to that increasingly intentional retail visitor to encourage that purchase in deeper and wider ways, understanding what product connects to what product, understanding that journey, utilizing those baskets. If there is necessarily more dwell time because we have less staff available, which is natural, then how do we utilize that? How do we utilize our impulse areas? How do we engage and entertain? How do we ensure that that customer path to purchase is utilized such that the customer doesn't get frustrated and abandons the basket? I think they're probably the key points. I don't think it's about more roster. I think we need to be prudent. This is about profitability, and there is a challenge around profitability when passerby traffic is declining so very, very much. It's around everything that you said, Kylie. It's around understanding how you can use the hourly dashboards, or how you can understand that traffic, the new when and where of traffic, and then how do you execute that retail environment to use these metrics to then say, cool, I know when and where my traffic is, I know who and how to roster, and I know the how to execute because my dwell time is moving in this way. My bounce rates, my abandonment rate within my store is such. And so how do I do that? Then if you really want to take it to the next level, understand your storefront conversion pieces, understand all of those extra bits and pieces, but executing towards that is going to be really central. And then to Charmy's point earlier and Bianca's point earlier as well, is how do I fish from other people's ponds? I think that would be, if I had one final comment, that would be it. One, I think Wonderful. I put in seven. Well, I think I put in 7 comments as my one final comment. Thanks, Kylie.
Well, Mr. Tony Fazio, head of product at Kepler Analytics. It's always a pleasure listening to you talk and all those golden nuggets that we take away from today. We really appreciate everyone's time this morning or this evening. Thank you for those staying up late internationally. And if you would like a copy, please let us know. We'll share it with you today after the presentation. So thanks again, everyone. Have a wonderful day or evening, and we'll see you again very soon. Thanks,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.